Often referred to as the Montagnards, a term that is often shunned because of its connection to French colonialism, the Degar people have inhabited the Central Highlands area of Southeast Asia for an estimated 2,000 years. On the left, you see a map showing the names of the 5 tribes and their locations in southern Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. The map on the right will give you a better idea of where their traditional territory sits within Southeast Asia. The Degar people knew no formal education until the arrival of missionaries. Their education consisted of learning to farm and the other day-to-day activities that they would need as they grew up. It wasn't until the missionaries came that a formal education was available and a written language was developed. Depending on the tribe, the Degars traditionally spoke either Mon Khmer or Malayo-Polynesian languages. It wasn't until the arrival of missionaries that a written language was developed. This and the fact that the tribes were so isolated from the rest of the world contributed to the limited knowledge of their history. Prior to the arrival of missionaries, the medicine often used to cure illness was the sacrifice of an animal. After their arrival, missionaries, and especially the Smiths, brought modern medicine and knowledge to the Degar people. Musical instruments such as gongs, flutes made with buffalo horn, and primitive xylophones made with bamboo, ornate weaved baskets and colorful clothing weaved on a loom. These are all part of the traditional arts of the Degar people. Most of the Degar tribes were matrilineal. The man, upon marriage, would join the woman's family and take her name. Once married, the division of labor was similar to what is traditional here in America. The men were responsible for matters outside of the home, while the women maintained their home, cooked, and cared for the children. Here you can get an idea of the slash and burn or swiden process the Degars used for farming. They would cut the undergrowth to the ground, allow it to dry, and then burn everything. By not tilling, they left valuable nutrients intact in the soil. This, along with the nutrients introduced by the ash, resulted in fertile fields for their crops. This shows you what their fields look like after the crops have begun to grow. Compared to American farming, the fields look rather unkempt, but by doing this, they didn't have to amend the soil the way American farmers would have to, because the nutrients are left in the soil after they slash and burn the area. Here you can see them planting the seeds, which is traditionally rice. The men would use a dibble stick to make a hole in the topsoil, and the women would come behind them and plant the seed. This left the topsoil intact, which is very important in an area so prone to monsoons. This gives you an idea of the longhouses the Degars lived in. Each house housed between 10 to 20 family members traditionally. Most of it was a commons area, but there were some limited areas that immediate family could have some privacy. On the left, you see scenes of the traditional sacrifices the Degar people made to appease the spirits. Upon the arrival of Catholic and later Protestant missionaries, the Christian idea of God's sacrifice of his Son resonated with the Degar people and made for an easy transition to the new religion. Here you see Gordon and Laura Smith, who were Protestant missionaries in Vietnam. They arrived in 1929 and would stay until the 1970s. They arrived as missionaries, but began to look at the cultures they saw with more of an anthropologist's eye toward understanding the people they had come to live with. In 1941, the Smiths were forced to evacuate Vietnam when the Japanese invaded. During the 6-year period they were unable to return The Smiths began to change their way of thinking about the role of missionaries in the lives of the people they were supposed to be helping. What I find fascinating about Gordon Smith is that he really transformed from a missionary to an anthropologist. He recognized that it was important to understand the culture and not just force change on the people. He returned to Vietnam in 1947 determined to help the Degar people and not just preach the word. You might notice that the two Degar women in these pictures are topless. More often than not, the missionaries would require the native people to show Western modesty upon their arrival. These pictures, to me, epitomize the gentle, understanding way the Smiths treated the Degar people. As part of their mission in the Central Highlands, the Smiths built schools and two leprosy hospitals. The second hospital was built, with the help of the now present American troops, near Da Nang and was designed almost as a luxury resort in order to put the suffering people at ease while being treated. During both the French Indochina War and the American War, the Degar people honorably served on the side of the Western powers. During the latter, the Degars served with, and came to be highly respected by, the elite special forces of the army. During the American War, the Degar people were removed from their ancestral lands and moved to refugee camps in order to open up free fire zones. Corruption within the South Vietnamese officials who were assigned to care for the camps, a lack of respect for the Degar people, and an inability to farm the land they were sent to resulted in Degars leaving these camps and returning to their villages where they were caught in the crossfire. Starting in 1986, Degar refugees fleeing from the oppressive communist government of a unified Vietnam began to immigrate to Greensboro, North Carolina. Today, Greensboro has the largest population of Degar people outside of Southeast Asia.